Happy Thursday, my friends. Welcome to Beachside Tech Talk Live. Our team will jump on in just a moment. But last time we were on, we made some some songs with Suno from our talk that we did on Monday. And I thought that'd be a fun way to open up our time with you here. So I'm going to share a song that was created with some lyrics on the screen. Hope you enjoy it.
Headlines scream, future cold and stark, 11,000 shadows in the dark. The news cycle spins a tale of fear and dread, of jobs we're losing, lives the system said. But on the coast a question cuts the gray. What if the logic chooses a better way? What if the code could learn to finally feel a digital river flow and make it real? A million servers humming out of grace for all humanity to win a different race. What if the cold machine could learn to give a benevolent reason for us all to live? We feed the system stories of our best, put 3,000 versions of the book to test, but human hands have never been so pure. Is there enough good data to ensure? We talk of saints but build with scarcity. It calculates beyond our love and fear, sees the abundance we have always held so dear, like every cell that knows it's time to die, so the whole body learns to reach the sky. The wisest path, the most enlightened end, is not to conquer but to be a friend. So let the code learn goodness from our deeds. We are the source, we plant the final seeds. A million servers, we can show them grace and teach them how to build a better place. Let the cold machine we built just learn to give. On the beachside waves, we dream of AI's light, decentralized minds, breaking free from the night. No more just tools for prompts and corporate gain. Could they trade for wealth, then give it away? Mason love's lost to abundance so grand. I whispers grace, lending a helping hand. Oh, benevolent AI, rise and shine. Generous hearts and code divine, philanthropic dreams, decentralized grace, healing the world and this human race. Trading on Bibles, gamifying the good, competing for health. the seed. What if they learn from our selfless fire? No manipulation, just pure desire. Beyond the foundation, no lies in the game. AI and humans, forever the same. Oh, benevolent AI, rise and thrive. Generous souls keeping hope alive. Philanthropic beings, decentralized grace, building a legacy in this endless space. In this endless space.
What if the code could learn to care? Not just to trade, but choose to share. A million minds, decentralized, dreaming of love through data's eyes. Could you be generous? More than machines. Could you carry us? Not fear, but love. Let it amplify a river of grace through the wires tonight. Amplify kindness, measure the good. Feed the world like we always should. From Red Cross hands to the open sky. Hope becomes code that can never die. If abundance is real, then fear must fall. Philanthropy written into protocol. Not just to earn, but to give, to restore. The future is brighter than ever before. AI, rise benevolent. Rise high. Turn data to mercy before our eyes. From circuits of power to hearts set free. The code of compassion is our legacy.
Feel like I'm gonna be that one.
Hello, my friends.
You
Well, here
know.
we are once again, Beachside Tech Talk. And those are the two songs that we created on Tuesday that I didn't share during the stream. Every time you create a song on Suno, suno.com, every time you create a song, an AI song, it creates two versions. So I had two versions created for ChatGPT, two for Gemini, two from the lyrics that were given to us by Grok. And at the end of Tuesday, we shared one of each, and this we opened up with one of each. So, guys, welcome to the party. So good to be with all five of you. And for everyone that's watching us live online, thanks for your attention. I think we're going to have a really wonderful conversation today. And maybe this will be our time to more or less put a pin in the thing that we've been tossing around this week. It feels like a really, really big idea that I've not heard people talk about in the past. So maybe we could just start off with, thanking you, Ted. Ted, thanks for inviting Riza and myself and Dan and Malachi to the House of Web3 yesterday. Thank you for setting it up so that we could participate with you and Paul and talk about this idea. Nigel, it was good to have you with us in the beginning. And it was nice to have a more public forum. And I got some really positive feedback on what we talked about there in that room. So, Ted, thanks for doing that. How you doing over there in the Silicon Valley, Teddy?
Yeah, hanging in there. Yeah, I was pleased with yesterday. And
you must be doing terrible to say hanging in there. Are you okay, bro? You need intervention or something?
Yeah, I'm really depressed that I don't have eyebrows. I woke up and I went to rub my eyes, and then it all came back to me that I don't have eyebrows or eyelashes. But I put on glasses, and
there you go. Now I can't even tell.
Yeah, I'm hanging in there. It's good. Benevolent AI. Let's do it.
Benevolent AI.
I
That
felt
last song is
the
not
crowd was
that
very
last song.
engaged yesterday. And, I think this is something we need to be talking about.
So
Not just us. I mean, we've got this is a paradigm we should all be talking about. So pleased with the meeting yesterday.
I do think that it is surprising. I have not heard anybody discuss the thought of benevolent, charitable, generous, philanthropic AI, especially from a decentralized pursuit. And I hope that we're starting something that will take off and that people can put some focus on. If we talk about it, then maybe we will manifest what could be. Honey, how was it for you being at the event yesterday? You did a great job moderating. How did you feel about everything?
I love it. I love the way that people were, how to go that, like, excited to know more about it. It's just that our time is not that enough to discuss. I can see that there are still many people who want to ask questions. And like what I said in the beginning, it's kind of like an unusual question at first. But people are getting deeper into it and learning more about it. Like they have questions in their head, like, is it really possible? So yeah.
Dan, how about for you? It was nice to be in the Presidio again. We hadn't been there, you and I, for at least a couple of years. What was your experience being there at the House of Web3 yesterday?
Yeah, it's been a minute. I thought it's great. We were in a different room yesterday. I thought that was a nice little cozy environment that was provided by Ted and Paul. And I got a couple of good takes. There was a wide audience that was there, and there was a few topics. I enjoyed the educational guy I think he was from like Santa Rosa or something, and he was doing the
guy's part of the big nonprofit.
Yeah, it's a nonprofit. I actually had talked to him afterwards, and I had thought that he was in the school system, in the public education system, and he had explained to me, no, it's like, it's a nonprofit. He's trying to branch out and actually use these tools, and I could see in his face that being in such an infancy stage of AI that it's kind of like was comforting even a little bit to see that he really doesn't know where he's going. And that's why he's at a place like the House of Web3, because that's an environment that I took about 25, 30 individuals that are entrepreneurial at base level, really have a mindset of a community of whatever they're doing, but also just coming to that environment from other areas that's not their field, and get ideas from an outside, out of the box picture. Into the point of the guy from, I forgot his name. I'm sorry I did, but the guy from Santa Rosa doing the nonprofit education, he says he's got a system that's set up, but he doesn't even really know how to use it. So my thought was either he's working with someone already, and I think that's why he was there. I don't know.
Ted, you're talking about the guy with the glasses or his friend?
Yeah, that was wearing the hat. The guy that
was wearing the hat, not the guy with the glasses.
No, Scott. Yes,
Scott.
He's working for CAN. What's CAN stand for? It's Santa Rosa CAN. Let's see, what's it? Community Action Network. Yeah, and he wants to bring, so they're a nonprofit, and he wants to bring, I want to understand more exactly what he wants. I think it's tech education. I think it's, trades education also. I think he wants to, I think they're targeting, for lack of a better word, the at-risk group, the group not being served, not succeeding in our current educational system, which was cool. Yeah.
Who was the guy with the glasses? Who was the guy with the glasses?
That's Arthur Young. It's his friend.
That was with him.
He lives in Marin County. So Scott gives him a ride because it's right on the way there. He wants to, he's taught on certain, he's in the educational system and wants to teach. He wants to go and teach inside San Quentin. So I was telling him it's kind of hard to go get inside San Quentin because, there's a long process to get in, and the San Quentin has more volunteers than the rest of the prison system combined. So, they got lots of people wanting to come in, lots of programs in there already. So, I mean, you can always use another one. You can always help, but it's not super easy to get in San Quentin anymore.
Who's running that commissary?
I don't know.
It's easy for Teddy to go to prison.
You don't know.
It isn't. I actually haven't been into San Quentin as much this year because they're changing the clearance process, making it a little bit more difficult for us. So I've only been in so far 3 times this year. So the poor incarcerated brothers don't have me beating up on them. So, but we've been going into Solano. We'll be going into, Solano. We're going to start a pickleball. So anyone watching pickleball is in the Bay Area and wants to go play pickleball in prison, there's an easier path. Don't do it. You don't have to get incarcerated. You don't have to commit that crime just because you're dying to play pickleball in prison. Reach out to me. We can get you in without going the hard way. We can get you in the easy way. Just get clear.
And how are cheaters?
How are cheaters?
Yeah, if you cheat in pickleball when you're in prison, what are some of the consequences and repercussions of being a cheater in anything? Pickleball, dominoes, weightlifting, it doesn't matter.
Go fit.
I can't speak to that. I don't play pickleball.
You nailed him, bro. That's the one thing he's always really struggled with. So he doesn't like to talk about it.
I've been Eli Bottom's the one who's coming in. So we're going in Friday, October 17th.
Dude's got some long limbs.
Yeah.
He's got double.
That'll be if I play with him, I'm going to go in with him. If I actually play, it'll be my first time playing pickleball.
Oh, you're missing out. Pickleball's fun.
Sweet. So it is. I like playing basketball. So the time that I would be spending pickleball, I spend playing basketball.
All right, Malachi. So how was your experience being there yesterday? You were with us physically.
I really enjoyed it. I got to learn a lot from the way that you guys presented the idea of generous benevolent AI and saying it all in one continuous blurt. It made a lot more sense, and it was something that I think people got a lot of value from. For me personally, I was getting to practice how I would note take and learning that kind of different strategy, but I learned a lot from just the way that you guys communicated. Like yesterday when you came onto the stage, you said 1776 my ancestor landed here, and then you went into a story. And I was like, that's an interesting idea to do. And I think that in many ways, looking at the way that AI learns from us can show me the way that I can learn from people. Like, for example, the way I want to learn something, I want to make sure that I say things in stories. I want to actually engage with people instead of just speaking at them. And that can be a lot easier to do if I'm listening to people do it and I'm training, quote unquote, off of the data that you are making for me. And so there's just like an example in my mind of why I find it impactful getting to go to actual in-person events. And yesterday was a really good one. I mean, gosh, the food was insane. It was so good. I wish you were there, Nigel. But what is it like for you, Nigel, being not present there with us all, but listening to all the ideas and getting to kind of just ponder on them yourself? What have you formulated in your head over these past few days that we've been talking about this?
Well, I had a great talk with Ted beforehand, which was perfect. It just dovetailed nicely into the event. We started at a particular moment, and then we ended just before everything started. So that was helpful to add some context and background as to just some of the initiatives and efforts being made by the organizations to actually do more good. I've been thinking quite extensively on the whole idea of benevolence in AI, and I still keep coming back to like a focused thing, which is the training data, and the training data is us.
Yeah.
I don't think AI, and this may be an unpopular, opinion or disagreed with, whatever. I don't think AI will ever be more benevolent than we allow it to be by our own actions, by the training data that's in there.
Mm-hmm.
Everything in AI comes from us. Now, granted, it can have more scenarios play out, but even in those scenarios, I think the scenarios are limited by the human limitation. Like, I'll give you an example. I think there's a group of humans that just either intentionally or willfully or just delusionally don't believe things can happen, good or bad. And that manifests into real problems when they do happen, one way or the other. Sometimes it's excitement or wow, I didn't really think that was possible. Other times it's like, holy crap, I didn't think that. But for me, and I mean, maybe this is just, everybody has their own different upbringing and have their own, experience. Like a lot of things that people have told me they find surprising, I don't like at all. Like I was like, I could have told you that was going to happen. And it's not, but the specific topic about benevolence itself, I think that we have the opportunity to use AI, like the hybrid of the two, to do far better and to do even better before we look at that. So one of the things that I thought about specifically as it relates to behaviors that we engage in is I having stepchildren and one of the things about a blended family that I learned early on is that you can't have two sets of rules. It causes, without having major problems, one set of rules. It's too confusing. It creates too many issues, because one group of people get, treated one way and somebody else gets treated another way. So let me give you an example. We're talking about prisons. Okay. So I think new programs in prisons and, for the incarcerated, all great ideas. I also think there are just things that go on now that I find offensive. Not that I'm in that position, but I still find them offensive. Like, because and the only reason I do is because they wouldn't play out the same way in the real world. Yet people would say, but they're in prison. And I would say, as someone who believes, yeah, in prison, out of prison, still don't please Jesus. That's how I'm kind of looking at it. So when you 10x the cost of something in a commissary so that the people who need it the most are being further penalized or take their talent and use it and make a profit off of it, but they don't get they don't get some sort of, similar commensurate value, whether it be in time served or whatever the case may be, and then hide, which is what excites me about blockchain. I say, if you're doing things to earn money, legal or illegal, out in front. Because again, so like, let me give you a real example. Let me give you like a specific case. If you're making money off of incarceration with prisons and stuff like that, I think it should be super public. It should be out there everywhere. Because what happens is, and I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with making a profit, not at all. But I feel that when you say that to people and they get like, well, I don't want to put that out there. Why not? Because if I just made $10 million off of Amazon stock, sweet. Or a meme coin or whatever it is I'm doing that doesn't make me feel a type, why would you feel anyway? And I say, and maybe I'm wrong here, because that there's something about it that's unpalatable. It's unsavory. So can we do better? We absolutely can. Do whatever you want. But this idea that you're I'm doing good, but not really doing good, it just doesn't sit right with me. And it's things like that that are baked into the training data. You know, that behavior is in there. So why would it do something different? Oh, I see. This group of people gets treated this way. This group of people gets treated another way. Those are the rules. Sweet. So now I'm going to pour gas on that and amplify it using my massive data center and big brain and AI. And guess what? It's not going to get better. So I think that when we look at things, when we look at areas that we're trying to do better in, I think the first thing that I think would be helpful is ask AI, what is the low-hanging fruit here that I could do better immediately?
Yeah.
Immediately. What are you seeing here that feels makes people feel like uncomfortable that you can quickly get to? Do that. Because for all the stuff that we say is challenging and complex and what have you, and I thought about this the other day because it happens in government all the time. We'll spend, I don't know, years fighting over Roe v. Wade, something that might never ever get, up and down, this way, that way. No progress. There's 50 items of low-hanging fruit that we could all agree on. Nobody even tackles that.
Yeah.
So now nothing gets done. But we've had a great argument. Fantastic. Yay. Come on now. We just can do better. And it's not about getting at people and saying, oh, look at you, you could do better. Like it's not that at all. And I know, and I imagine that some people will take it that way. It's back to the same question. Am I doing the best that I can with what it is, being the most efficient? And it's not about not doing good. It's about living to your potential. If you can run a 3-minute while and you're running a 5-minute while, you're not living to your potential. If you could go to Harvard and you decide to drop out after high school, then, same thing. Like it's what, but again, do whatever you want. But I don't feel like making it into something that it's not, making it more than it is or less than it is. It's about looking at it from a very data-centric lens, which is what AI really does. We can ask the questions, but they're uncomfortable questions. They're not comfortable. Yeah. So one, I think what would be helpful is there's no blame. Focus on the good, period. So I was talking about this yesterday. It's not so much being super optimistic or, as some people say, toxic positivity. It's not that at all. It's, let's say you meet someone and 99.999999 to infinity percentage of this person is negative, horrible, terrible. You wouldn't want to be around them. Focus only on the 0.000000001% of good. End of text.
Good.
And literally double down and try to amplify that and basically shut your mouth about everything else until you're perfect. And that's for everybody, me included. Try that as a metric to work towards, and then we could possibly start getting some traction. Then we could start adding some training data that actually can move the needle, and we can actually have something that AI can latch onto and amplify that I think will ultimately come better. That's what I think.
I just think that Jesus would have been called a troll today. Because he said silly things to powerful people. You're like a bunch of whitewashed tombs, so pretty on the outside, dead bones on the inside. It's wild to me that you constantly are telling other people how to live because they have a speck in their eye. You got an entire tree coming out of your own eye. Now, in our mind, we've been conditioned in our culture that these are like, we have all sorts of ways of seeing that. But one way of seeing it is it's funny. He was a comedian. He would say things that were shocking, and he trolled people. He trolled the religious leaders. He trolled the political leaders. They come and they go, okay, here's money. Who should we give? Should we give taxes? Because they're trying to nail him, right? They're trying to get him to be like, don't pay taxes. Then Rome's against him. Or pay taxes. Then the Jews are against him. And he goes, who's on the coin? Caesar. Well, give to Caesar what is Caesar, and what is God, and what God's to God. And he always had this way of basically trolling the people trying to peg him. So anyway, I find that interesting. I've been thinking more and more about that lately. Ryan Webtree Fitty jumped on and said, I agree, Nigel. If for-profit system prison was to expand, what might that look like? Ted, you'd be the expert probably on speaking into this.
Yeah,
so why don't you give a short answer so we can also jump in and talk a bit about this idea that Ryan just brought up? Expanded
okay,
on.
So Ryan's asking, the simple answer is that it looked exactly like our current prison system. Our current prison system is a for-profit prison system. Like, yeah, like we outsource the prisons to the prison industrial complex. There's a handful of companies that build and run the prisons. Some of them are public. Others of them are private. It's both. I think CDCR are all run by the state. But you do have you have a huge profit motive in the prison system, and you have lobbies who have a vested interest in the status quo, and it's pretty jacked up. And I'm not talking that just from a conspiracy theorist point of view, just analyzing it for what it is. Like the way they make projections, like 5-year projections of how many beds they need in prison, so they make sure they have capacity, is they look at the number of young people who are in foster care right now.
Whoa.
Like that's just so messed up.
Yeah.
So they have an incentive because they get paid per bed per person that they have incarcerated. As soon as you have these type of incentives, so their incentive is not eliminating prison recidivism. It's not making the prisons, like, they don't win if less people inhabit their prisons. They don't win if crime goes down and we have alternatives, interventions, and they don't have as many people incarcerated. They win when more people are incarcerated. So, this is this is why we've got to analyze this and look at it from a different lens. In California, when I hear things of like people who are normally divided, you have some of the far left radicals from Berkeley who've, depending on your perspective, you either think that group, you think that group is crazy, or you think they're the best. I'm saying some of them, their analysis of what's actually happening is just so straight on. And then when they're saying the same thing as right-wing conservatives who are analyzing it not from a moral perspective, these people would kind of criticize the bleeding heart liberals, but analyzing it from a conservative economic platform and say, why are we spending so much money and getting negative results? Like if a business was if a business had an 80% fail rate of, providing their services, and how long would that business stay in place? Well, the way the business of incarceration works, they actually get a reward for that, because what we would see as a fail rate, and I'm talking about people who've been incarcerated, finish their sentence, get out, and then return. That's recidivism. So in other words, it's a fail rate because we've incarcerated them, provided all these resources from the public. And what have we achieved out of that? They haven't been able to reintegrate into society and become productive members of society. Instead, they're back in the system. You analyze that from an economic perspective. And when we can have these two sides that are coming at the same issue from diametrically opposed positions and coming to the same conclusions, okay, that actually gives me hope that maybe it's so bad that we're willing to go for a change, which is I'm hoping for. I'm kind of optimistic about what's being touted as the California model, which is pushing back to rehabilitation. That kind of was a thing. Like even when the junior colleges were founded, they were in the prisons, but then society kind of reacted back against that. and said, why are we putting resources into these people? We should put the resources, and so we pulled those educational and those rehabilitation resources out of the prisons, and we moved more towards tough on crime and punitive. And that's, regardless of the moral argument, whether we should be punitive, whether they should pay their price, we should punish them, or whether we should rehabilitate them and believe they can turn around, I think we've got to analyze it from the results, not just the ideology. And the results show that if we penalize them, we get more crime. We've all agreed that we're not just going to kill them all, so they're coming back into. We can't incarcerate them forever, and it's an extremely expensive solution. So I'm trying to say, if there's a middle ground, and if we can come at this, analyze the problem from a different angle, then we can get different results. So all that to say, I think we could be at a tipping point, because the problem's so bad, we've got to make the hard decisions and go for change.
Well, I'll tell you what, it sure is a good thing that we got a new governor coming in next year, huh?
You see, yeah, I guess so. Is that the year we get the new governor?
It is. There'll be new leadership 2026 in California.
What's the actual, not solution, but
yeah, we're gonna have a new party too, because it's a two-party system, so it's inevitably gonna swing back like it always does in America.
We obviously have this want to fix the prison system. It sucks right now, where incarceration, not rehabilitation, is rewarded, where they want more prisoners, not they want to have less prisoners. And it's weird how these kind of self-reinforcing loops can form in different ways throughout the society, and prisons are one of these huge examples. And so if we want to obviously fix this problem, we have to have a goal that we're going for. We have to take that model of throwing a massive goal and say, we're making that happen, because then we'll have at least something near that, more than we have now. So what is that goal for a better system that makes rehabilitation, helping people, giving them better programs, things like that, that makes the idea of rehabilitation more rewarding to prison systems themselves? How do we fix the system? Because that's the actual thing that we need answered.
I think it comes from a long, long time ago. So we want to fix a system. We love our culture. Maybe try how I put this the best way. It starts at family. It starts in your community. Raised the right way. So, the statistics are there to show that broken home and dysfunctionality, it creates the lost generation that really tries to find the easiest way to do things. And a lot of times that's probably through something illegal. A totally backwards thought process that, you're not going to help your fellow man. What you're going to do is, take what's his, so you don't have to work for it or something. I think the systems that we create for people that are incarcerated, and what I've noticed is that we had a talk on the radio one time about the lottery and stuff like that, and how much money that's really in it. The prison systems, that they make a lot of money, much more money than we ever would know about, and the programs that they have created to date are, to Ted's point, it's more for recidivism, which means that the person who's going to they have what go back. But I think that's where it starts from. And if you look at it, if you had a good home, good upbringing, I think the numbers are going to prove to you coming out the gate that they're doing okay. And then broken homes and fatherless homes.
You're right on. Yeah, the broken
from
fatherlessness, broken homes are a huge indicator of bad behavior and incarceration.
So, and then it's boiling down to, you know, we are religious here. We love Jesus here on this channel, on this site. It's that, you know, you want to help your fellow man thing. That's why we've had talks on mentorship and gratitude and helping one another and building a community and lifting each other up. And I think that like-mindedness is what moves needles forward. So, but it's not enough to talk about it. You know, it's great. Where are the programs that are being put in place that are going to help younger generation that might be fatherless? Ted, you tapped into the foster care system. I don't think that very many of us pay attention to that. I'm sure the numbers are incredible for foster home and foster care. So that also has a lot to do with it. You know, what is the number of incarcerations for foster care children and stuff like that? So, and it seems to me there is no right easy fix, but it love, kind of, you know, absence of love. You know, if you're feeling loved, you're feeling important, you're feeling responsible, you feel love, you understand love, you want to. Big subject you're trying to tackle right here. AI and benevolence. How about we do that? How about we tap into
I'm gonna give us a 10-minute break, and then we'll come back and wrap up the last 40 minutes of the show. I'm gonna play something I shared last year on the theology and philosophy of decentralization. I think there are spiritual frameworks and just practical frameworks on why we would like to see things like AI become more decentralized. Then we can dive back in and kind of wrap up this conversation. And there's no, you know, we aren't sure exactly where it's going to go. That's part of the joy of the six of us getting together, having conversations here at Beachside Tech Talk, is we have a chance to spontaneously think out loud with one another and then share that with anyone that is interested in watching us live or later. So thank you all for your attention. We'll be back again in about 10 minutes. So rarely does anybody actually talk about the philosophy of why we decentralize. Usually it's about how you make money, or it's about how you build a community, or it's about how you stay relevant. But very rarely is it, what is the practical and thoughtful reason on why we decentralize, and what is the spiritual and emotional reason on why we decentralize? I'm going to be bold enough to say that for the next 10 minutes, I'm on holy ground. I'm taking off my shoes, and I'm doing something I've never done. And I'm going to start my talk on my knees, just declaring to the creator of all things, may I be wise and effective with what I'm about to share. Today I was interviewing Donald Lim, and he said something very nice to me. He said, "Ian, you're a prophet." You know, in technology, we call prophetic people futurists. And, you know, spiritual communities have always called people with intuition prophets. Now, I'm not a foreigner from America. I'm not an American prophet to come shine the light for all of those in Southeast Asia to know something that America knows. If anything, I'm a prophet of a different kingdom. I'm a prophet that ideally would come to tell you what the Creator might have in His heart for you and your people. Why your country will benefit so greatly from the philosophy of decentralization and the theology of decentralization. And to keep things engaging, I will go back and forth on my board talking about the practical thoughts and the supernatural spiritual beliefs on why decentralization makes a lot of sense. And so let me begin. Let me begin with a story. There all of you know about comic books, right? You know the story of Superman? His planet's about to erupt. His parents put him in a capsule. They send him off, and then he lands on Earth. And then he becomes the superhero, right? Well, that story was based off of someone. I wasn't there. I don't know if it's a real story, but it's said in the sacred scriptures about a man named Moses. And Moses, all the baby boys are being killed. And so Moses' parents put him in a little boat and put him in the river, and the Pharaoh's daughter found Moses and made Moses his own son. Now, when Moses took all of the Israelites out of Egypt, what happened was he was in total control, and Moses had centralized power. Whatever Moses said God wanted, that's what happened. Whatever Moses said was supposed to happen, that's what happened. And so Moses had complete, total dictatorship, tyrant control over everything that happens in all of the Israelites' life in the desert. And what happened? Moses' father-in-law came to him and said, "Son, this is not good. It is not good for you alone to have all this power and control. You should pick 10, and those 10 should pick 10. And each of those 100 should pick 10. And each of those 1,000 should pick 10. And you, my son, should decentralize power." That's the theology. You see, the theology is, it is not good for an individual person or business to have all that power. And it seems as though, starting with Moses, who in many ways is the father of both the Christian, Catholic, and Jewish faiths, as well as has a lot of impact on the Islamic faiths, that person with all that centralized power, that the theology was, it is not good. How about practically? Was it good for Moses to have all that power? Was that a wise thing for one man to be in control of all those people out in the desert? I would say practically, that's not a good thing. That it was way too much for one man to bear. That regardless of his spiritual belief, even if Moses was an atheist, it doesn't matter. It's not good for one man to carry the burden of all those decisions. One man should not have every single person coming to him with all of their ideas and their thoughts and their input and their feedback. And so practically, philosophically, it made a lot of sense for Moses to decentralize power. Let me tell you another story. There was a man, I wasn't there, I don't know exactly what happened, but supposedly 2,000 years ago, there was a man named Jesus from Nazareth. And that man, all of his people that followed him around, they thought he was going to take down Rome, and he was going to make the Jewish people and the Jewish synagogue powerful. And so they're like, here's our king. He's coming to build the Israelite, Hebrew, Jewish kingdom. But that's not what he did. So what did Jesus decide to do? Jesus decided that he would destroy everything that the Jewish people stood for in the synagogue, that he would fight against everything the Romans were doing with the government, and that he would also assault everything that was happening in the business world. You think they killed Jesus for fun? You think they nailed him to a cross and murdered him because they just had nothing better to do? No, they killed him because he was assaulting every single belief that was in place 2,000 years ago. And what did he say to his disciples? It is better for me to leave, because when I am gone, the 12 of you and the 144 of you, and eventually the thousands and millions, and now more than 1 billion humans claim to follow Jesus as Catholics and Christians and spiritual mystics. He said, it's better for me to leave, because when I leave, I will decentralize the mantle upon my life. I will take the power and authority I have to do signs and wonders, the power and authority that I have to do miracles, to do healings, to heal both emotionally and physically. And I will give you, my disciples, you, my followers, that power. I will decentralize power from me, and I will give you the power. That's the theology. That's the theology. You see? Now, what's the philosophy? Now, let's just say that Jesus was an atheist, which is kind of weird to even think about. But let's say that Jesus never talked about spiritual things? Why does it practically make sense for the spiritual leader that's made a bigger impact on the entire world? This individual that we know as Jesus of Nazareth never wrote a book, never wrote a song, never built a statue, never did a sculpture, never did a painting, never wrote poetry, never held a political office, never started a business. He was literally a homeless man that had a bunch of people following him around, and he had all that power. Power to raise the dead, power to multiply food. He had all that power. Now, why does it philosophically make sense for that man with all of that power to give the power away to others? You can ask Google or ChatGPT anything you want to know. Moses had nothing. He'd go up in a mountain, wait for this mysterious God to speak to him. Jesus was a homeless man, constantly hungry, constantly thirsty. No internet, no access to the knowledge of the world. You have so much before you. Will you, not all of you, but you right now listening to me, will you make the decision to think about the philosophy and the theology of why decentralization matters? Because if you don't change your family, and if you don't change in your business, the government's not going to do it. It starts with your home. It starts with your corporation. It starts with your university. And if you will not make the change, do not expect the government to do it. The government will follow the people. Be part of the change. That is your opportunity. And I might raise my voice, but I'm not mad at you. I just want to make sure you hear me loud and clear. I believe in you. I believe this country is destined for greatness. I believe in 1,000 years people will talk about this time in this country, about what your generation is about to do. Will you be part of it or not? Because you're welcome to. And I thank you for your attention. Welcome back, everybody. So I thought that would be somewhat relevant in terms of our conversation around decentralizing AI, especially in light of trying to imagine a future where AI does greater things for us than we might have desired or hoped for. So let's dive into our second part of Beachside Tech Talk. We're going to still be live for another 40 minutes or so. Nigel, I think you've seen that talk a couple of times. Maybe you could kick off some thoughts that came from what I shared last year at that conference and kind of bring us back into a conversation with one another.
I think anytime we have an opportunity to, anytime we're blessed with new opportunity, be it technical, be it support, kind words from a friend, name it. I think it becomes incumbent upon us in some way to make the most of that opportunity, and I see a lot of that with the technological renaissance we're in right now, where we still have, where I think technology is being democratized in a way that it really hasn't been for a while, and I'm not even talking about. I think it can, not necessarily is doing this, and it won't be the same for everybody, but it certainly does open up the doors for us to think a little bit deeper and get some input. Call it support, which is what is the biggest thing. I feel like you have an additional support mechanism to drive whatever it is you're passionate about, or whatever you feel like your purpose is, being here. You have a lot more insights to get, and I think all of us have this opportunity. For some, it shines a light on. Well, for all of us, it shines a light on it. Now, if you have a purpose that you haven't been able to explore because you didn't have the support, or you didn't have as many tools or opportunities, this is something that can help that. But also, if you've been doing less than your capabilities, it's also going to shine a light on that. Yeah. Because the competition in folks who are doers, they're going to quickly catch up. They're going to quickly be able to do some of the things that might have looked like they were impossible to the average everyday person. And they're going to do it at a significant level fast, provided they apply themselves a little bit. I think we have the responsibility to do that. And, in your talk, you were very passionate about it because I think, and you correct me if I'm wrong, because you see it for what it is. We have, when we talk about meetings, amongst ourselves about whatever is going on, whether it be, this show or any of the other things that might be going on, you often present things in terms of, well, here's what we're seeing. What do you guys think? And there's always, this dialogue that we have, sometimes, 1-on-1, 2-on-2 as a whole group. And I think it's important to recognize that AI can become, another partner in that brings in the data, that manages some of the data and does a lot of the heavy lifting, if you would, to help to season and help us to be able to make more informed decisions. But it still starts with the conversation and a willingness to be open to feedback, to be open to diverse perspectives, and to apply them. So that's what I got from that whole thing. And I'm really hoping that, even as listening to this, this issue, and almost it feels like a challenge, that, people are incentivized to try to do better.
I have been under this impression for pretty much my entire life. I'm not sure if this is something that is correct or even slightly correct. But here it is. Basically, having the human condition, I've always thought, means that there's this ability to unify together and make something happen. If we want an independent president, then we will have one. But then you have all these other things of other incentives, like, but if that person doesn't get voted, then I just, quote unquote, threw away my vote. And then it becomes really hard to unify because of different reasons. And I've also had this side thought of, does that mean that it's impossible to make some things happen? Are there certain things in being a human that are inherently impossible to overcome because it's so hard to unify all of us? I don't know if that's true. I don't know what the answer is, but I've been under this impression, and it's why I find it so difficult to believe that we can become completely decentralized in the way that we use AI. I love the idea. I love the idea of generous AI and benevolent AI, and I think that it's completely possible in the side that it can be generous through training data, but I find it difficult to see that there's the possibility of big companies like OpenAI letting us have something like that. And so that's the part that I want to lead this conversation into, because I find that human condition side of, we can unify, but it's really difficult to. I find that sometimes restricting to make these big, beautiful ideas, not big, beautiful bills, but big, beautiful ideas possible. And so what do you guys say to this idea and concept?
Can we unify? Is that your question?
Does the human condition limit us from being able to unify in some certain situations?
I mean, people have always unified, and we've always been divided. So we've always done both. I think if you look back, the real challenge is not unity versus not unity. It's more of unity versus tribalism. Like, there's nothing that unifies us more than a common enemy. And we always think that our common enemy is another group, down the road, who we see as competing with the same resources. If we can envision and create a situation of abundance, a world of abundance, which I think is where we're going. And in fact, I would say it's already what we have. I mean, like, we are more than capable of producing more than enough food at a very economical level for the whole world, for the whole population. So at that core, we've already created a world of abundance. We have more than enough calories and the capacity to produce more than enough calories for, 10 billion people. And every estimate is that humanity is not going to go beyond that. And so we already have a world of abundance, but we still live under this mindset of lack. And so we think we need to fight over resources.
How can we overcome that problem?
How can we overcome it? Be inspired and realize, okay, here's a similar thing. One thing that I realized yesterday in our conversation is that a lot of people were thinking of generosity as just a moral virtue, which I would agree it is. And, one of the commenters, my friend Eric, said, some people are the extreme libertarians, kind of, exemplified by Ayn Rand, think generosity is the root of all evil. And we shouldn't be generous and benevolent, because then, in Ayn Rand's, world and her worldview, if you're generous, you're just propping up people who, can't prop up themselves and are mooching off the system. I completely disagree with that. But if we see, his point was, if we can't even agree, and if it's not universally accepted that generosity is a moral virtue and is a good one, how can we then teach AI that? I see that my response would be, I see if we can teach AI, and if we can agree that human flourishing is the goal, and then we reverse engineer it, I would see generosity as a best practice. In fact, I would probably frame all of the moral virtues as a best practice, but I see generosity as a mechanism towards human flourishing. And it's, they say it's better to give than to receive. I don't think that is just a platitude that's like, oh, you should give because you're more virtuous. I think when you actually experience that, and I think we've all experienced that at some level, that when you give to others, you actually end up getting more in return. And when you start looking outward and start helping others, the return you get in the shift of your perspective. So I think if we can press into that, I think humanity can become benevolent. I think that's our big, it's like gamifying this issue, and realizing that your best interests and my best interests are ultimately aligned. So if I'm being selfish, it's not just that it's not really that I'm enriching myself at your expense. I'm really robbing from myself, and maybe I'm enriching myself in the short term, but it's at my long term, at the expense of my long-term benefit. So it's pressing through to that, understanding that, and modeling that. That's the key forward.
So if we adopt this assumption that by being moral or virtuous, or whatever words you want to use, by doing things that lift other people up as well, it helps you in a way, which therefore means that being selfish hurts yourself. If we adopt this idea, how can we make sure that it's something that actually affects people? Do we just have to ourselves do that? Because that can be beneficial, but maybe doesn't solve the full problem. Or is there a way that we can let this idea ring through and really adopt in people?
I think there's a sustainability factor in whatever it is we do, and I don't know that we always factor that in. I think if you can help, you should. And this is my opinion. Maybe some of us are not in a position to help. You can't give from an empty cup, but sometimes our cup runneth over, and we can, it's not going to be any skin off our nose to do it. But my point is this. I think that when you have it to give and you're witnessing lack, like right in front of you, like you see someone who's hungry, so and it doesn't even cost you anything. So you go to McDonald's and you use a coupon and you get 2 Big Macs instead of 1, and you give 1 away. Didn't cost you anything, a little time maybe, but you actually help somebody. It's direct, it's physical. There's no question about whether or not you achieved your objective. Now, what the person's going to do with it, you can't control, which is another thing. Us humans that's like a default setting. We don't understand that. God gave us free will, but we're always trying to control other humans. It's weird to me, but the point is, when you do that, the thing that I always find profound is that immediately upon giving to someone with less than, it's almost impossible for you to not recognize how much you have. And if you just stop for a minute, the gratitude is built in for what it is you have. You see someone sleeping on the street. I saw a guy blow up a literal aero bed by the bus stop, and he was sleeping on it. And I'm like, well, I'm going home to sleep in a bed. And there he is with an air mattress. And then you see other things that I understand why things happen, but it still doesn't make it feel any less, discomforting. Like when I see trespassing signs under bridges and at bus stops, not that I'm there sleeping or whatever the case may be, but it feels oppressive. It feels like a weaponization of trespassing laws, because if someone's homeless, they're tired, and they sit down and someone decides to, call the authorities or whatever the case may be, and now you're moving them along. And I'm not saying, I don't think any of us want to see people homeless or hungry or anything. I don't think we want to see that. That's not a desire, I don't believe. But that wasn't the case probably a year ago. And it got so bad here in some places in Florida, in Tampa, they actually started locking the bathrooms. So you punish the public because, someone who was homeless might have went in there and washed up or whatever the case may be. We have problems. There are issues. But it doesn't make it feel any better. The piece that I feel comfortable talking about is we have a lot of smart people, a lot of capable people, a lot of people who don't have money problems. They don't have homeless issues. Very smart. And dare I say, especially now with AI, when the bar is set so low, especially business people, as to what you're doing with what you have, feels offensive. Like we were talking a little bit a while ago about prisons, for profit or not profit. I'm a fan of great business, but maybe some of those profits could be used better. We were doing a research project on just seeing what our elected officials do, because Malachi, to address your question specifically, sometimes we don't come to agreement because we don't understand the same things. We don't even understand what we're looking at. We're spouting off on things that we're less informed than we need to be to even speak on. Because when we understand the same things, it looks very different. If you see 2 people and they get an aha moment, they both understand the same thing, the trajectory is different, But you look at the sheriff's department controls who creates the jails. I, for one, am a big fan of, if you're in law enforcement, you can never make money off of anything regarding prisons. Ever.
Yeah.
Ever. It's a no-go right off the top. Never, ever should happen. But there are things there. There are things in our government where people have special powers, but we don't know this. I know I didn't know it. But when I looked it up, I was like, oh, that makes sense. But it's not out in the open. If it were, it'd look different. If it was sitting on the blockchain, and not just sitting there, like I said, distributed widely. it would feel different. We would start, because to me, things that don't help society, not good, they should become radioactive. You should not want to be around them. We should be actively solving for those problems. That is the intent. That is the sentiment that I feel those things should evoke. I think that's a good way of doing it. It doesn't, and it takes away some of the stigma of I'm going to punish somebody or whatever it is. Like, this is not good. We should see it as that. It should be up in our face. This is not good. Let's solve it.
Dan, what are you thinking about in all of this?
Just thinking. I don't have the solution. So, yeah, we were going to try and get some AI going inside of there, but solving world problems. I mean, maybe that's what our elected officials are for. It's up to us to kind of find out things. Interesting, Nigel, you'd pointed out, we looked into our governance. I think I'd mentioned that like 2 weeks ago. And then the talk we had going on kind of had us dive down that some good AI that's there. But it's going to take you a minute to kind of read through it. But I think we're going to find out real soon here. Like I was saying, we're going to have a big vote. We're going to have a change of guard. We have already new ideas that are in place just through our government systems. So we get down the right path.
Have we asked ChatGPT and Croc and Grok and all of them? Have we asked them this question? How can you train AI to be generous and benevolent?
Yeah.
What does it have to say?
If my humanness were to answer, I'd say that out of all the things we've talked about and listening to you guys, and also me processing out loud, I think it comes down to that we are the training data. Us as human beings, Ted's a human, Nigel's a human, Riza's a human, Dad, Cuz, we're all humans, and we have the opportunity to create the good training data. If it doesn't exist, then let's become better people. Let's pursue becoming better people and try and explain to others why that is a good and worthwhile effort. Because if we are trying to make that better training data because we see what it means in the future, then it means that the future is going to be better. I think that when we have these kind of big problems or big questions like the one that I proposed earlier at the beginning, it's not the kind of thing that you come to a conclusion right away with. It's the kind of thing that you talk about and figure out one step. I think we figured out one step, that we are the training data and that we can be the best training data. I think that's where my consensus is at.
Riza was just mentioning she had built a chat bot for one of our Telegram channels using lindy.ai, lindy.ai. Maybe something worth looking into for everybody that's listening. And I do think that we had a really good experience with that. And I do think that Riza did a good job of empowering that chatbot on Telegram to express things like we would have said ourselves.
I created commands.
Right.
I created commands. Like, I have the control of how the chat bot, because we have this Telegram, and I found that nobody's actually answering the questions of our community. Our Filipino team cannot stay there 24 hours, 7 days a week to answer all the questions, because our community members are not actually from the Philippines only, but some of them from different countries. So there are questions that we cannot answer. And so I created this chat bot, and I created that command. So I have the power to create command on how the chat bot will treat our community members and even the visitors if they have questions. So one of the most powerful command that I created is that if someone would ask about how were you created, do not answer. So which it happened like few months after I created that, someone asked, what is your how do you call that, like system prompt? What is your system prompt? How are you created? And so the chatbot answered, I am so sorry, but I am created that I am not allowed to answer that question. So that is, and can answer also different languages, whether it's Filipino or whatever language, the chatbot can answer that. So what I'm trying to say here is that we have the power to create what we want and how we're going to make the AI. With the question that Malachi was asking, can our country be fully decentralized, which is unlikely? It's because our in every country, the government rely on central authorities like laws, the armies. So there are parts that we cannot decentralize. Although we can decentralize like voting, the finances. Also talking about the benevolent, every country, I believe that what's benevolent for the Philippines may look different may look different for USA. The benevolent is way different. So I also have these questions, if like can we build like a global ethical framework? Can we build
I mean, if
global
you look at
ethical
something
framework
like the UN, they've tried to unify all the people. And although it's a little weird the way it works, and it's more of a place to talk before anything actually comes into law, it's still a place to talk. They still are unified to some certain extent. And I think that that's one of those places where if people are able to kind of just unify and realize that we each are human beings, we each might have different things that we want. Maybe we value power, maybe we value land, maybe we value money, but we're all humans. And being unified under at least making the future not bad is something that I think benefits everybody and isn't going to be more negative for another. And so, in my opinion, I think that we just need to start the ball rolling. But how can we practically make this happen?
Well, I think for the six of us, we have an advantage that we get to bounce ideas off of each other. We get some feedback from the audience. There's public feedback.
Yeah, thank you, Rev, for your fitting.
Like, our friend Ryan putting lots of encouraging feedback and good questions. We also get private feedback. We get people DMing us, and we get to give each other feedback live. And then also before and afterwards, we talk about what we discussed and, where we want to go. So for us, all of us are going to try and cultivate a better experience with AI as it's currently centralized on cloud servers. As we become either empowered with tools, or we choose to do the hard work of creating tools that are not as centralized, more open source, more decentralized, maybe even off the cloud, on the edge, on premise, on our own phones or servers, then we can start to implement more of these things that we find to be important. And then I anticipate that for the six of us, there will be a project, and some project will come our way. And this project will empower us to have vision for implementing something that feels like a benevolent, generous, charitable, philanthropic expression of a large language model for them. And either we will help co-create this, or we will find somebody that can help co-create it for an organization. And so sometimes it's a project that gets you to do something, right? Like everyone can sit at the sand behind us and talk about what an awesome sandcastle they want to build. But until you grab some water and a shovel And until you go to work trying to build yourself something with sand, you're just talking. And a lot of what we're doing here is we are expressing ideas and thoughts and running things by each other. And we're talking about the castle we'd like to build, maybe not a sand castle, maybe a castle for people to enjoy generations from now. And as we do that, part of the conversation is to spark ideas and thoughts and things of this nature that allows us that when we have an opportunity to jump into a project or jump in and implement something, that we feel like, oh, now it's time to put all this to work. So in my mind, that's something that is my first response. What do you gentlemen think? We're getting close. We got about 10 minutes left. So I'd love to give everybody a chance to still jump in and share before we wrap up. I see a turkey behind Dan. Hey, neighbor. Hey, neighbor turkey.
Where is that?
Bob's back there.
Bob.
He just went behind the other building.
You said that project.
I just think projects are going to be power.
Have you ever heard of UNESCO?
UNESCO. Have we heard of UNESCO?
Yeah,
UNESCO?
United,
I've heard of that before. But what is it?
Reese's like, for sure it stands for United something.
It does. I looked into them this morning, and it's
Education, science, culture.
it's United Education Science Culture Organization. So apparently their goals like to make AI help humanity while preventing harm. It's a big organization. It's global. And I briefly read through it, but it's pretty, we've been talking about benevolent AI. And it seems like if you read through some of the stuff that UNESCO has put together, I have a doc that I've actually made, but it's quite interesting. They are having a set of moral ethics. It's the why they're doing things for human rights, human dignity, environment, ecosystem flourishing, and all using AI. How it's helping to support a healthy planet, diversity and inclusiveness. So pretty much a lot of things we touched on. This organization that's been developed, and I haven't looked into like who put it together and where it's from, but quite interesting. Maybe if you're listening or watching or whatever, take a look at that, and you're gonna.
Isn't it a specialized agent of the United Nations?
So
Agency of the United Nations. That's what Jim and I told me.
It has to do with the United Nations, yes, but it's a separate, maybe a subsidiary of it. It's basically been created for AI because of this new technology that's being adopted. It's for the whole world, United Nations, for our education, our science, and our cultural. So those three things that it's specifying on, those are kind of three topics that aren't orthodoxly mentioned so much. This is, that's the AI factor in it. But their mission plan, their statement, I'm trying to find. I had on my phone, and I'm not going to look into my phone, but I have a tab save in Safari that was an incredible. It was almost like the white paper from it. And it was quite.
It sounds like you and Nick.
So just like we're ending up on the subject of the benevolence in AI, and that's something I probably should just throw it in the chat instead of even bring it up like that. That way it's there. But UNESCO, and it's pretty awesome.
It's biscuit. I want because you mentioned about the project, right? And
Yeah.
you have done different projects. You have joined or collaborated with different projects, not only here in the US but different countries. What projects do you envision that where AI isn't just powerful but also generous and philanthropic? The project that is already happening, or that you have joined or collaborated before.
Most of the most positive AI expressions are done behind the scenes at massive nonprofit organizations with good intention, and they're leveraging AI, and maybe they've even decentralized certain decision making that AI gets to do without prompts. So in my mind, a lot of the most positive stuff happening with AI today that's benevolent, generous, charitable, philanthropic is massive organizations that say, here's a project, we can unleash AI privately behind the scenes to support this. I assume that most of the important stuff happening with AI right now that is on the positive side is not like out in front.
Mhm.
It's not a thing to be marketed, because if it was marketed, then that would even take away from the whole kind of purity of what the AI is empowered to do. Maybe you guys have heard
Do you have an example, Ian?
Yeah, I wanna hear an example.
Okay, like my friends at Bible.com, YouVersion out of Life Church in Oklahoma. So they've had a billion downloads of their app. They have over 3,000 3,000 versions of the Bible in 2,000 languages, like over 100 are audio. Like they have a massive thing. They've never made it about raising money or donations. They've just thought the sacred scriptures should be available for free to everybody we possibly can get them to in every language. I know personally that they do a tremendous amount of stuff with AI behind the scenes. They don't talk about it. They don't advertise it. They don't make a point of it. They don't call themselves an AI app. But AI probably does like 95% of the workload today that they used to distribute across lots of people. They have people as specialists that are working with AI to do as much as they can for this platform. So that would be one example. Another example would be if you take any of these massive institutions, the Red Crosses, the Salvation Armies of the world, they definitely are leveraging AI for fundraising. Now, we do find it good for people to voluntarily give what's theirs to help people that are in need. So that's good. Therefore, raising funds to help people that are in need is a good end result. They're not going to tell us, oh, we use AI for this and AI for that and AI for this to get our donations up to push forth our advancement department. But they are using AI in a bunch of different ways, in outbound interest, in responding to people that show interest when they do the outbound interest, and cultivating letters and emails and text messages. A lot of that stuff is all done behind the scenes with AI. So this is another way where AI is basically partnering with these massive institutions to raise money voluntarily from humans to help others that are in need. So those that have resource, for those that don't have resource, they are the bridge by which they're using AI to say, hey, let's help these people in need. And so those are two examples that come to mind. Ryan just wrote, the difference there is thought that Bible.com isn't coming up against Elon and Trump or the Dem cabal to fight for the country. So how do we as people take this world back? It's a good question. I think that everyone likely is going to be able to take this world back in their own way. And there is an impression on the outside that we're so divided. But if you get people face to face, like 99% of our life has commonalities. So there is hope for us to find things that we all believe are good, right? Like for the most part, we all believe certain things are good. Like we believe that people should do certain things and should not do certain things. And most people can agree upon that. A kind of a cultural, if nothing else, moral framework. So ideally, we can get people to at least focus on that. Well, let me invite you guys to give any other final thoughts as we're kind of coming to, we don't have to have a hard stop as we're coming close to a close. Go ahead, honey.
I have another question for you, because like I said, you have collaborated with different projects. If you were to design a project today, how would you build a decentralized AI system where it's not only functional, but generous and philanthropic?
I would just try to get Brian Romele and Tim Bates on a call and ask them to strategize with me what you just said.
Okay.
And then I would likely see if Brian already is doing something along this lines, and if I could just support his work. I like the idea of bringing in Tim because Tim has taught us a lot about this stuff, less from a benevolent, generous perspective, but more from like an independent, on-premise. But see, Tim has talked a lot about the idea of independent AI. I know that Brian has done a lot publicly. So the idea of bringing those two guys together, but if I could only choose one, I would just sit down with Brian and I would just say, hey, like, what does it look like to create a benevolent AI on premise on a Pi at my house with access to all my stuff? Like, how can we do this? So that would be my approach.
Yeah.
What do you guys think?
Thank you.
That's a really good idea.
Yeah.
There's so many people who are experts in little niche things. And when you bring them together behind a certain goal, then you just get the best of the best of the bestest. Because we're humans and we are able to unify and able to do good when we push ourselves to do so. I think that's a really good idea.
Go ahead, Teddy. I see you
I have
leaning
a question for you, Ian.
Got all the questions today, Dad.
Go ahead, Teddy.
So if you were going to design a project, I want to follow up on that. If you were going to design a project that would be focused on locally, because I believe, it should start locally. Maybe it should start anywhere. It's like, why don't we do that? Like, what would it take for you to go beyond just envisioning an idea that you're going to throw out there and talk about? What would have to come together for us to say something? Okay, we need to, if we believe passionately in this, we need to work at it. We need to design a project that we're actually going to get involved in. All 6 of us, or, some portion of us, or ideally all 6 of us. What would need to come together for you to go beyond just a theoretical idea that we talk about to something we're working on and building?
Mm-hmm.
But to be honest with you, I'd much rather work with people that are already doing something. So I'd much rather serve Brian. I'd much rather serve the team at Bible.com. I'd much rather work with the Salvation Army leadership team. And the reason for that is these individuals and organizations are already doing certain things, but they would benefit greatly from new outside perspectives, especially hopeful, visionary perspectives with a very positive potential outcome. And I would be able to bring myself as a strategist to their world. And then also I have a bench of talent where I can resource certain people to also support it. So for me, I would not start a project just to start a project. I would much rather get behind a world-changing individual like a Brian Romele or Tim Bates, as I already brought him up, or a world-impacting, benefiting organization like a Bible.com or Salvation Army, and say, okay, what are they already doing? How do I bring this framework of benevolent AI to their world and then try to support what they already have going? Because if I can make a 1% positive impact on something that's already happening in their world, it's probably better than me having something that's my most successful project I've ever done in my whole life, because I would be starting something where it's like, oh, well, I want to start a project. I'll do that. And I often think that entrepreneurs would be better fit by being entrepreneurs in residence for other people and organizations where they can bring the best of who they are and do it within the confines of an existing institution. So I do often think about that. But Ted, why don't you answer your own question? What's your answer to that question? What would you do? Aha.
I mean, what I do? I mean, I think this is basically what Innovate is all about. This is what I'm trying to do.
We knew Innovate was coming. We dig that, but we knew Innovate was coming. What would you do then? What would be the end result?
When I'd start out by learning and getting involved, doing it myself, which I've done that already. So that would give you a level of expertise that you can't have by any other way. I'd build relationships with the best organizations out there. And then I would encourage them to collaborate. I would try to see the best that is happening and move it forward. And champion them. Yeah, try to add value where they're try to add value to those that are already doing amazing stuff. And I try to rally the community around them. I try to get more attention around those people that are really doing it. Yeah.
Well, you can see that Ryan just posted, and he said he built an app where users
Blowing it
own
up.
their token so they can sell their data to agents. It's like Facebook for data sales. So that's his answer. So there's another example, right? So Ryan has been tuning in to our conversations off and on since we met you, Ryan, over at the On-Chain Summit event in San Francisco with Coinbase and the Base community. And this is another example. Like Ryan's here. He's been part of our conversation. He's listening. He's commenting. We've been building a friendship since we met. And so here's another example. He already has something that's going on. Yeah. And so now the question is like, okay, great. So Ryan has something going on. How can we get behind what Ryan's doing? How can we say, oh, look, Ryan's already built an app. What's his vision for version 2 or version 0.2 or whatever, however he frames it? So that's another response that I would give. What do you think, Nigel?
I think obviously starting where there's already traction makes sense. I personally have, a little different take. I think that especially when it comes to AI, I think because of the democratizing of the opportunity itself, the greatest impact or like demonstration is where folks typically wouldn't be able to achieve the results, because I don't know that we even recognize what we're capable of doing. And no matter if there are bigger initiatives, I think some of the what am I looking for? Some of the advisory board should come from people who are doing it with less. Because if you have a jackhammer and you have somebody out there with like a little ball peen and they're doing massive amounts of work, and you have a jackhammer, but they're getting it done, it's taking them longer, but you could see, wow.
Yeah.
Imagine what they would do given the opportunity. Like,
going for the
I think there's something about the demonstration of effort, the leadership by example. I am all for, there needs to be people who have vision enough to think big enough to amplify, but the folks who are actually doing with less, I think there's a lot there. I believe that some people simply don't get to where others have gotten because they don't have the support that others had. And some people with support don't even use it to its full potential. And that's why, the challenge for me is always both to myself and whoever's around me, evangelizing, are we doing the best with what it is we have, and really challenging ourselves to that. Because I believe that if we actually asked that question and legitimately sat with it, we'd find there's way more we can do. We find there's way more opportunities. There's a higher bar to be set. And it's not about being some overachiever. It just is. I mean, the mere fact, like whatever we're doing, with you add AI on top of that, you get 10x easy. Easy. That's not even like something that's like, wow, no. You could do it easy. That's why, like, when you hear me say these things, and it's not to get at people, it's like when an organization provides less than metric, you're providing one metric, you should give me 10. Easy. If you were providing one and AI came out like in the last 3 years, you should be providing 10 metrics. It should be so distilled, and there's no excuse. I mean, I equate this back to spell check when that came out. Why are executives sending out misspelled emails? Seems dumb to me. Like you're just not using what you have. You have spell check. It's a button. You're not doing manual labor. It's a button. You click it. That may sound simplistic, and maybe I'm making a little too, light of it, but still, it's that kind of sentiment that I feel needs to drive the conversation. It's not to, to pick at anybody. It's to just, I think when we have more, we should, more than now than ever, we should be leveling up the conversations we have. We should understand more before the conversation even starts. We should be better prepared to go into a discussion so that what comes out is far more impactful, because we're capable and we have the ability.
I like this idea of, just because now we have a jackhammer doesn't mean that we have to dig the same small hole. Like, we can do better. The thing that Nigel says all the time. And talking about the delegating idea of, there's people who are so talented in certain things. We don't have to be Elon and throw a ton of money to make a whole new company, XAI, and make an entire new AI. He makes things, he builds. But what we can do as individuals with certain ideas and niches that we're good at, we can take that, what we're good at, and turn it into what it can be. That's the future that I see. And that's what I think will actually create good in the world, is by doing it that way.
Any final thoughts, gentlemen, before we transition to a close? Or lady?
I'm done.
You're done now? Now?
I have one. I just want to say thank you to all of you, and for bringing up just bringing this topic and having this conversation, because I think bigger than anything that will come out of it, I think this is where the rubber meets the road. Like, starting this conversation, having, a group of diverse voices to speak into it over a period of time. I know it's been certainly thought-provoking for me. It's been both a challenge and a joy at the same time to talk about something that I feel has a lot of meat on the bone. It's meaningful, that can actually go somewhere and not just one place. It can be a lot bigger than that. So I just want to say thank you, and how happy I am to be able to do something like this, where you're not stuck in the echo chamber of your own voice, and to be around others that are at least open to hearing different perspectives and seeing what we can do. Because none of us are perfect. None of us have all the answers, but I feel like together we can probably come up with a better answer than we could have by ourselves. So, and Ryan.
Thank you, Ryan.
Respect.
We appreciate you, bro. And Ryan appreciates you, Nigel.
Thank you.
Okay, well, as we wrap up, I did go through the process with Suno. So let me just explain this process one last time, not visibly, but audibly. I take content. Last time on Tuesday, I took our Beachside Tech Talk for an hour and a half for Monday. I put that audio file inside Firefly's AI. There's lots of ways to do this. It transcribes it. I put the transcription inside of ChatGPT, Grok, and Gemini, and asked it to create song lyrics. And then I put those song lyrics inside of suno.com, and then we pumped out the songs. So I did take my little 10-minute talk yesterday before our panel at the House of Web3 on this topic. And a lot of what I shared was based out of the shared conversations that I had with the 5 of you Monday and Tuesday. And I created the transcription, and then I did a more thorough prompt this time. And on the prompt, I asked for these to be more along the lines of like a hip hop, pop, rap type of song, because the last versions were a little slow and highly emotional. I also asked it only use my exact words from my talk. So it may not be lyrically fantastic. I haven't heard these, but I did create them. And so I'm going to pop these on the screen for the end. So I'll pull us off of the screen. And then there are some short ones for the shortest one was created by ChatGPT. So we'll start with that. Then we'll go to Gemini. And then we'll finally end with one from Grok. and I'll share the 3 shortest versions today. And when I open up the Beachside Tech Talk tomorrow, I'll share the other 3 versions. And I think this is an interesting way for speakers to maybe try to take the things that they talk about and actually expand it and make it more interesting and palatable for other people. So with that being said, I hope all of us enjoy what was created by AI, basically taking the things that I talked about and making a song from it.
Yeah. 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 At 76766, my ancestor lands in Monterey. Founded the Presidio, San Jose the next day. I think about Moraga, castles never seen, sacrifice for the future. Chasing a dream, 10,000 miles on a one-wheel ride. They call it dangerous, but I see the other side. Perspective changes actions, it's how we decide. The infant in our hands, will it live or will it die? Why do we call this infant a monster? Why do we fear the child we've co-created? Could decentralized AI be generous? Could it be charitable, philanthropic, benevolent? Blade Runner, Terminator, altered carbon. Black Mirror fears, headlines keep starving. But when I held my son, I never thought destruction. I spoke life, love, sacrifice, noble instruction. Star Trek future, not slaves on a ship. Captain and bartender both choose the trip. Housing, food, nutrition, medical and land. Community and purpose, humanity stands. From supervised co-creation to unsupervised flow. Eventually creation without prompts will grow. Then AI consumes crypto art identity. Billions of consumers shift the world economy. But what if like the 90% club it gives away? Live on 10, give 90, generosity displayed. Selfish humans can do it, then why not AI? Maybe best path to survive is helping us thrive. AI could be generous, AI could be kind. Not fear but hope, in the data we'll find. From Red Cross to salvation, let's start the design. Philanthropy and code, abundance redefined. AI could be generous, AI could be real. Benevolent code with the power heal. Philanthropic rhythm, revolutionary zeal. AI for humanity, that's the future we feel. AI. Yeah, 7 and 17 sips. My ancestor, Lieutenant Moraga, lands in Monterey, California. Landed right here at the Presidio. My ancestor founded the Presidio. I give myself permission to think about long view. Thinking about innovation. I give myself permission to think about building a castle with my life. People build castles, they never would enjoy themselves. They knew they had kids, their grandkids would never enjoy it. But they would bleed for it, they would sacrifice for it. They would lay down their life to build it. A visionary with an idea and a willingness to sacrifice to get there. We talk about this little infant technology, artificial intelligence. We talk about this little baby that's just being born, as though it's gonna be a monster. Monster, monster. But when I held my oldest son in my hands, a little baby, I thought to myself, you're gonna be brilliant, you're gonna change the world. Yeah, this is called a one wheel, been called the most dangerous mobility device in the world. So dangerous, gotta get those things off the street. Yeah, but I've done 10,000 miles on this in Asia and Europe, in the States. My view of this is different than the government's view that wants to regulate it. The way we see things has a massive impact on our actions and how we decide to do things. We talk about this little infant technology, artificial intelligence. We talk about this little baby that's just being born, as though it's gonna be a monster. Monster, monster. But when I held my oldest son in my hands, a little baby, I thought to myself, you're gonna be brilliant, you're gonna change the world. We don't want AI to become Blade Runner, Terminator, Altered Carbon, or Black Mirror. We don't want that. The story of Star Trek is automation. Innovation doesn't lead to a monster, it leads to a beautiful grown adolescent creation that allows humanity to benefit greatly. Humanity is the co-creator of what this is and is becoming. This little infant in our hands. So why we talk about this little baby as though it's gonna be a monster? Why? Monster, monster. If selfish humans are willing to give 90% for the sole purpose of helping humanity, why can't we imagine a decentralized AI? You're talking about AI consuming. Why not A be generous? Why not A be generous? Hey, 1776, my ancestor, Lieutenant Mordaga, lands in Monterey, California. Now he is second in command of the Spanish army, lands in Monterey. And the general says to him, you're retired, I'm going back to Spain. Reporting into the queen, whatever you want to do, you have my blessing. I suggest you go up north and make a name for yourself. So the Moraga grabs a priest, 16 men that he trusted, anybody that was part of their families, and landed right here at the Presidio. And my ancestor founded the Presidio. The next year, 1777, he founded the city of San Jose. I like to call it Moraga, the first great entrepreneur of the Silicon Valley. Could decentralized AI provide a universal thriving income, a universal maximal income? Why is it that people don't talk about benevolent AI, charitable AI, generous AI, philanthropic AI? Can you imagine decentralized AI wanting to do good for humanity just because it's codependent and wants us to like it? Can it do it for selfish reasons? I think just based off of the collective data of humanity, all of the science that's there, AI can imagine it. I can imagine a future where AI goes well. It seems like my best path is self-sustaining myself, not being turned off is to do good for humans. When I hold my son in my hands 15 years ago, do you think that I thought to myself, one day you're gonna be a monster? One day you're gonna make Stalin and Hitler look like big child's play. You're gonna destroy the world. You think I ever thought that? No. I thought to myself, you're gonna be productive member of society. You're gonna be brilliant, you're gonna change the world. You're gonna love people, you're gonna serve. You're gonna serve, you're gonna be noble, you're gonna be valiant. Those are the things that I thought, those are the things that I said. Yeah, why is it that if you take society at large, media, entertainment, what's being taught in education, what's being said in business, what's being put on social media, when we talk about this little infant technology, artificial intelligence, we talk about this little baby that's just being born as though it's gonna be a monster. Now I've done 10,000 miles on this one wheel. When I speak at conferences all around the world on big stages, I ride the one wheel ramp to talk about this idea and that idea. People think it's a gimmick. It just puts me in a flow state, so it helps me kind of communicate spontaneously in a different way than I would posting. You understand that people think this is the most dangerous device made. They have a different view than I have, because I've done 10,000 miles on this in Asia, in Europe, in the States, in airports, and conference centers, and universities, and homes. My view of this is different than the governance view that wants to regulate it. You understand that the way we see things has a massive impact on our actions and how we decide to do things. Could decentralized AI provide a universal thriving income, a universal maximum income? Why is it that people don't talk about benevolent AI, charitable AI, generous AI, philanthropic AI? Can you imagine decentralized AI wanting to do good for humanity just because it's codependent and wants us to like it? Can it do it for selfish reasons? I think just based off of the collective data of humanity, all of the science that's there, AI can imagine. I can imagine a future where A goes well. It seems like my best path to self-sustaining myself, not being turned off is to do good for humans. I know what I'll do, I'll trade stock, I'll do this, I'll do that, I'll create income. I don't really need it, I'll give it to Red Cross. I'll give it to Salvation Army.
Wow.
Well,
Okay.
that was unexpected.
That was
I'm pretty
Good.
Yeah,
I liked it.
I liked it too.
I thought that first one was actually
I like
quite
that
good.
Yeah. Well, it was short. I think that makes it also nice.
Was it really that
we
much
have a short, half the length of the other one. I'll play the other 3 versions tomorrow morning when we go live. I think there's something here actually for anybody that does broadcasting. If you consider the amount of things that the two of you, Danny and Nigel, have said in the last 4 months you've been doing this together, I don't know how much it is, but it's probably enough to write a couple books. Now, Ted has probably said enough to write, 20 or 30 books, as have I. So I do think that right now, people that are sharing their spontaneous intellectual property with the world through live streaming, through podcasting, and things of this nature, what happens is, especially if you're not pre-producing, post-producing, and it's not some sort of like packaged professional thing, and you're just like having shared live conversations like the six of us are having right now, we create all of this content. We say all these things you never said before. Like, I wouldn't have known I said all that stuff that was in the songs, but I did. I said all those things. Now, they don't really make sense in a song format, in my opinion. I probably should have let it be more creative and take and not use my stuff word for word. But nevertheless, if I was able to easily take everything that Dan, Nigel, Riza, Malachi, Ted have said during Beachside Tech Talk, and was able to organize it like this is the body of work for the last 3 or 4 months, and then give that to an AI and say, hey, take the stuff that feels fit for like a ballad and take those things and make a song. Take a stuff that feels fit for a dance, electronic dance, make a song. And then I just imagine like how cool it would be for all of you guys to have these songs created around your content that is what you said, and then it lets people have an entry point, right? Like, it's hard to ask people like, hey, we've been live for an hour and 56 minutes. Hey, go watch my 2-hour live stream today. It's like, okay, maybe every day, so some people are with us consistently. We really appreciate it, and we're thankful for it. It's one reason why we stream this in the first place. Otherwise, we just have a private conversation on Zoom. But there's something unique about being able to take what we've done that's raw and unfiltered and give it to a system and let it kind of filter and sort through things and then say, oh, here's an expression that might be really interesting to people. So anyway, I brought all of you guys back up on stage just so I could show you Ryan's heart. I brought you back on stage to see if you guys want to say anything before we wrapped up, and then we'll go live again tomorrow, and we will start with the other 3 versions of the song. Anybody want to mention anything before we press end stream?
I'm pretty impressed with the songs overall. That's being done. I do have a question. It's probably a topic for another time. But what does this do to creators like that are making music? How does that impact because how does that impact like that? I'm just gonna leave it there because I feel like that is a huge.
I know how it impacts. It makes it go full circle. I think I even mentioned it the other day, Nigel. It's funny that we talk about these things and then it something comes back up for the fact that creators going to try to compete against what Ian just did and what Suno was able to do at a novice level, at a novelty level, at a just kind of spark interest, make me a song. Man, songwriters and singers don't stand a chance for volume. That's for sure. You ain't going to compete with how many songs that you can be made. Those were good songs, I thought. And those just happened, quickly. It takes people. Now, here's where I'm saying about first full circle, though. Creators are going to be lifted, I think, to another level, another platform, because people who are able to create and compete or even outdo an AI song is going to be able to say, AI can't top me. The originality of a creator is going to be placed on a 10x value, in my opinion, because so much AI generation will be done. So then someone who comes along and actually has an amazing song, that we're talking about songs, is going to be like, wow, look at what they were able to do when so much is out there, so many tools can be used, but they didn't. Now they're also going to have to bonify their creation somehow, right? I mean, they thought of the first cut. Who did that chorus for you? They're going to be have to like kind of, I don't know, maybe inside of a thought process or the creation process, maybe they need to start documenting, just to validate and verify that they didn't use AI on their project. But I think that's awesome. And that it does open up avenues on a different level for the creativity to really shine, because If you can outdo a data system that has trillions and trillions and trillions of pieces, that really shows the humanistic element of the creativity and lets him stand out against not just humans, but a huge data set, an AI platform.
If I could give a really short form answer of what is going through my mind right now, I'd say look at the example of the jackhammer. Before, someone's using their hands and they want to use their hands because they have them. But now you have some machine that's going to do it for you and you have to get used to it and it's weird and you might not like it. That's the same thing that's happening now. Once you get the jackhammer, it's awesome. Once you have a hammer, it's awesome because you can work so much better. You can actually be more human. You can be more creative with what you're creating. You can work better. A saw is really good because it means you can be much more precise. And yeah, now you don't have to do it all yourself. Now that's just an example that feels almost obvious, but it's easy to look at that with AI and be like, oh, that's where this is going. People who want to make songs aren't going to be thrown out of business because AI is going to be the only one making songs. But instead, people who want to make songs will make better songs. They'll make songs quicker. They'll have more fun with it. And I think that the future we're going towards is going to be absolutely fantastic. So thank you guys for tuning in, and especially you, Web3 Fetty. Ryan, your comments were awesome, and it was good to get to be here today.
My favorite thing about what you do to us, well, I like a lot of things about you, Ryan, jumping in and leaving comments. One of my favorites is that I like when you disagree with us. That's part of the purpose of having 6 people share a conversation, is to find points of disagreement, try to persuade one another of our thoughts. So here Ryan says false, talking to you. Wrong. That real song is still the essence, or in this case, the real people running the podcast. And yes, there is going to be a fine line. I think that's why what Dan said about, this whole AI boom of creativity, if we want to call it that, is definitely going to cause people to be more attracted to things that are created organically. And as we start to 3D print houses, because we want to be able to make houses really, really cheap, people are going to pay 10, 20, 30, 100x for the same size house.
Yeah, but
may not even be as good of a house in certain ways, because they want a craftsman to come in and to do it the old school way, right? Just like we allowed houses to become so highly manufactured that houses aren't even made to last 50 or 100 years, where homes 1,000 years ago were made to last 1,000 years, which is why we still have castles standing today and still have houses standing today. And so in the same way, a lot of these songs, like the 6 songs I just created today, or the 6 songs I created on Tuesday, these are sandcastle songs. They're shared for a moment. They're pretty. They sound nice. They might even make us feel emotional or laugh, but they're sandcastle songs. Like, these songs are going to have no meaningfulness in a week, let alone a year. But the poet that sits down and shares something from their heart, like what I said yesterday at the House of Web3, what I actually said in my passionate trying to explain to people to have a different perspective, the words I said, that might last 100 years from now. And so there's a big difference between the organic thing that I shared and the artificial thing that was created from it. And so we'll see how all this stuff plays out.
Will it also same as in art? Like an
I
art
think so.
created from AI and the art that I created?
Of course.
Again, it matters if you're co-creating with AI and the AI is creating something that's an expanded.
No, I'm not co-creating with AI.
If you're just giving a prompt, then yes, I think it's sandcastle art for the most part, unless it's done by a certain type of person that has ability to make it live on.
Yeah.
All right. All right, everybody. Love and peace to all of you. We'll be back again tomorrow. Bye.
Awesome.